Hi everyone, have you ever built a Power Query that uses multiple data sources only to get stopped by Power Query's inbuilt firewall function? In this video I'm going to show you how to build a parameter that's going to avoid the firewall rules. If you stick around long enough, I'll show you how we can link the contents of an Excel cell, feed a dynamic URL into our web query, and then I'm also going to, as a bonus tip, show you how to use Visual Basics to disable those annoying privacy prompts when refreshing, so that you can flexibly share this with other colleagues and them not be confused by any privacy pop-ups. So now we're in Excel. For this particular example, we're going to pull some live currency data from Oanda. On this Oanda website at the moment, I've got the GBP to USD conversions. So I'm just going to go to the URL here and I'm going to copy it. And then within Excel, we're going to go to the Data tab. We're going to go Get Data, and we're going to go from other sources and from web. An alternative, you can see this is one of the quick options. If we just go back to the Data tab, you've got from web here as well. So if we click on that, it's asking for a URL. We'll paste in the URL we've just copied from Edge. This is now going to connect to that web data source. So now we've got a series of tables that we can use from this data source. I'm just going to go for this first one, which shows a min, average and max for buy and ask. So I've clicked transform data, and now this is loaded up into Power Query. So I'm going to click on the close and load and close and load to. This is going to prompt us where we'd like to place that data. So I'm going to output it as a table, and we're going to put it on an existing worksheet and click on cell A5. So now we're happy with that, we'll click OK. So now we've got that data straight into Excel. We can right click and we can click refresh, and that will give us a live update of whatever data's on Oanda. So now it would be nice if we go to Oanda, if we were to select a different currency, let's say Japanese yen. As soon as we click that, we can see the URL changes to show the target currency. So what if we wanted to allow the user within Excel to simply change the URL they were using? So we're going to go to USD, we'll copy this URL again, and instead of feeding that directly into the query, we're going to put it in this cell within Excel. Now, to be able to reference this cell within Power Query, we need to be able to feed the contents of this cell into the query. Now, to do that, we've got the option of pulling data from either a table or a range. Now, for this example, I don't want this to be a table. I want it just to be a single cell. So what we're going to do as a quick workaround is I'm just going to press Ctrl-T down here. I'm going to press OK. That's going to generate me a table. Now I'm going to click on Data from Table Range, and this is going to import that dummy little table into Power Query. Now I'm going to close Power Query. We'll come back to that in a second, so you can see why I've done that. I'm going to delete this table we added, so we don't need that. And now I'm going to go to where we put our URL in this Excel cell, and we're going to make this a named range. So now I've clicked in the cell, up here where it's referred to as B3, I'm going to call that NR for named range. It's just an abbreviation I like to use for my named ranges. You can use whatever you like. And I'm going to put underscore, and I'm going to put URL. And as soon as I press enter there, you can see whenever we go onto that cell, the named range appears. We can also press Ctrl and F3 to open up the name manager, and you'll see we have that name stored in here that refers to sheet 1 B3. So I'm going to close that. And now we're going to go back into the query editor. I'm going to use the keyboard shortcut, Alt and F12. Now we're in the query editor. If we go to table 4, which if you remember was that dummy table we added, I'm just going to rename this to be URL. And if we go to our source step within this query, you can see it's looking for the table called table 4, which was that dummy table we added. So instead of that, we're going to feed it NR underscore URL. This was the named range we give that one single cell. As soon as I press enter now, you'll see that pulls through the URL and it's converted it into a table. It's also added a change type step, which we don't need. So I'm going to delete that. Now there's two ways of getting to this specific content within this table. We can right click on it and go drill down, which will take us straight to that item. Or alternatively, just so you understand how Power Query is working, we can click the FX button to add a step, and then we're going to say within our source we want to look for the first row. Now we work up and down in a query table using the curly brackets, and Power Query is zero-based indexing. So if we put in 0 within there, we're telling it row 1, the first row. And then how do we move left and right in a query? We use square brackets for the record fields, and we only have one record within here, which is column 1. So we can type in column 1 within our square brackets. So we're saying pull index row 0, or the first row, and pull the record or column 1. Now as soon as we press enter, you'll see we get the exact same result as that drill down. And now we've got that specific URL as a line item in Power Query. So at that point, we could go back to our first query, which I'm just going to rename so it's a little bit cleaner, and I'm going to call it Oanda. If we go to our source step within the Oanda web query that we initially created, you'll see we've got this URL. So if we get rid of that, because that's the bit that we want to be dynamic, and we don't need double quotes for this, we're going to point to our other query in here. And as soon as we start typing URL, you'll see it appears in the IntelliSense. We can press tab or click it. Just going to press tab there. I'm going to click outside of the brackets and press enter. Now as soon as we've committed that, you'll see we now have this error message saying formula.firewall refers to other queries or steps, so it may not be directly accessed as a data source. Now the reason for this is because Power Query is recognizing this query and that query as two separate identities, and then it's knowing that the one query, i.e. the URL, is pointing to an external source. So as part of the firewall rules, this is not allowing our other query to reference that step. So one way around that is we can turn this URL into a parameter. Now a parameter is considered all part of the same partition within Power Query and therefore won't trigger that firewall rule. So how do we convert this to a parameter? We're going to go to View and we're going to go to the Advanced Editor whilst we're on the URL query. We'll rename this custom step to be URL, and then we're going to press comma and we're going to press enter to go on to a new row, and then this is where we're going to create our parameter. So we'll call this function URL underscore function. There's going to be any name you like, and then I'm going to put equals to, we're going to do open and close our brackets, and then we're going to go space, and then we're going to go equals to or greater than, and we're going to put in our last step URL. And then within our in, we want to pull our last item within the query or our last step, which is URL underscore function. IntelliSense is popping up. You can either click it or press tab. So now we've got no syntax errors. We click done. You can see we've now got a parameter showing. Now that parameter is going to bypass that firewall error. So how do we use that parameter? We're going to go back into the Oanda query and we're going to go back to the source step, and where we're pointing to URL, we want to add in open and close brackets so that we're passing in the contents of that parameter, and we're going to press outside the brackets and press enter. Now you can see we've dropped out the firewall error message, but we've now got a prompt about data privacy. So if we click continue, we're going to get this privacy levels pop up. I'm just going to click cancel for now, and I'm going to click home and close and load to. Now you can see as soon as that triggers the refresh, the privacy levels pop up again. Ideally what we want to do here is ignore the privacy level checks, because these are stored at a user level. So if I was to send this workbook to someone else, the problem is they're going to try and click refresh and they're going to get these privacy level pop-ups. They might not know what to select, or they might be uncomfortable selecting anything. So ideally I don't want them to see this. So I'm just going to click cancel, and we're going to get an error because it's saying that we can't tap into that data source. And you can see the download did not complete. So how can we avoid that prompt at a workbook level so that when I share this workbook with another colleague, they do not see that prompt. So to do that, we're going to use Visual Basics. I'm going to go into Visual Basics. We can do this via the Developer tab. If you don't know how to use Visual Basics or you don't have the Developer tab, then I recommend watching one of my other videos which gives a clear introduction into VBA. I'll put that as a link in the YouTube description and also as a card you can click on. So now, assuming you've got the Developer tab enabled, we need to go into Visual Basics. I'm going to press Alt and F11 as my shortcut into Visual Basics. Once you're in the Visual Basics editor, we're going to go to the right workbook, so this workbook down here, and then I'm going to right click and I'm going to go to Insert Module. Now that we've got a new module inserted for a subroutine, I'm going to start typing sub, test, and then I'm going to press enter. That's going to give us a start and an end of a routine. So the little bit of code that we're interested in, I'm just going to paste in here. We're going to refer to this workbook, and we're going to say within the queries .fast combine function, we want to enable that as true. And then I'm just going to press enter. And I'm going to say this workbook again, and I'm going to put refresh all. If we go back into the workbook where we've got our did not complete, I'm now going to press the play button on this macro and we'll see whether that works. You can see using that VBA, we've bypassed that privacy warning and we've successfully refreshed the query. Now you're probably thinking, good, but I don't want the users to have to execute a macro to refresh the query. So what can we do there? We can take advantage of VBA's this workbook function where we enable this code to run as soon as this workbook is opened. So just so we can demonstrate this in action again, I'm first of all going to go to Data, and I'm going to go to Get Data, Query Options, and I'm going to make sure that I've disabled the privacy setting. So if we go down to Current Workbook Privacy, you can see at the moment we've got Ignore Privacy Levels. Now that's what that code has just enabled. I'm going to click Combine Data according to the privacy levels again, and I'm just going to demonstrate that if we click refresh now, we're going to get that privacy prompt. So I'll click cancel. And then we're going to go back into the Visual Basics editor. And instead of using a module, we're going to copy this line of code where we've enabled the fast combine function, which collapses those privacy prompts. And instead of a module, we're going to go into this workbook. So within this workbook, we want to put in a private subroutine, and we're going to use the workbook open feature. We're going to put in our line of code that we've just tested within a module where we manually executed it, and then we can end the routine. So now if I click close, and we're going to save this workbook, I'm going to close the workbook, and then we're going to reopen it, and then we're going to go to Data, Queries and Connections, so we can see what's happening. We're going to go to Get Data, Query Options, and what we should see is that workbook open code is already activated and run as soon as we opened it. So when we go down to privacy, you can see we've already got ignore the privacy levels pop-up selected because it's automatically run for us when we open the workbook via VBA. I'm going to click OK. Now when we hit refresh, I'm going to click OK. We're not going to see that privacy pop up, and we're going to get the new data coming through. You can see we've got 3 rows successfully loaded now. Let's just test that dynamic URL that we originally set this all up to use. Instead of USD, I'm going to type in EUR for euros, and then we're going to press enter, and we're going to right click on our query table, and then we're going to click refresh. And what we should see here now is the GBP to Euro conversion come through. There we have it. So that's it. We've built a query powered by a dynamic URL written directly within an Excel cell. We've converted that into a parameter, fed this into another query to sidestep Power Query's inbuilt firewall, and then we've used VBA to suppress the privacy prompts at a workbook level. No more interruptions, just smooth automated refreshes. I hope you found that helpful. Please hit the thumbs up button if you did, and also remember to subscribe to the channel for more weekly updates. Let me know in the comments what's your biggest roadblock when working with Power Query, and I'll see you again next week. Thanks for watching.